Hades 2 has been a very confusing game to discuss, with many people pondering their orb to find out what they think about it, mainly due to its story, and specifically, its ending. I have been the same, as while I enjoyed my initial playthrough, the story got me thinking about why so many people, and I, fell in love with the original game, and how the sequel failed to acknowledge that love. This has left us with a story I feel is flawed from the start, and hurts Hades 2 as a game. And with this new update attempting to fix that story in some way, it has not only hurt Hades 2 even more, but has also set a dangerous precedent for games going forward. Hades 2 has been brewing in the witch's cauldron since 2022, and in that time went through thousands of little changes and updates coming from months and months until Supergiant Games randomly announced that their latest update would be their last. I had been loosely following the game since its announcement, seeing the occasional art and notification, but wanting to avoid spoilers on the sequel to my favorite roguelike, and one of my favorite games ever actually. And when that day finally came, I was so thankful that I was sick for the weekend, as that meant I had nothing else to do but sink myself in this beautiful game, and I really want to stress how beautiful this game is. I don't think Hades 2 is a bad game. Far from it. The music and the visuals alone make it impossible to give this thing anything less than a 6. Every level is a wonderful landscape filled with so much detail from the enemies and sound effects, and the music helps create an atmosphere that makes this world feel like it's alive. There's really nothing else like it out there. It's amazing. The new characters added are great fun to hear and talk to, building even more detail into this world. However, going back to my initial playthrough of the game, I felt strange after finishing it, as if I had missed something. I originally chalked this up to me not reaching the true ending, similar to Hades 1 where you have to explain the disappearance of Persephone to the gods, which is considered the real ending. But unlike Hades 1, I didn't have an actual conclusion that I wanted. Even if you ignore the post-game of Hades 1, when you float down that river and In the Blood plays, the game feels complete, and Hades 2 didn't have that finality I wanted, so when the game asked me to continue my runs, I didn't have that same drive as Hades 1. Something was missing. I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again because that's how roguelikes work, not because it's what the story needed.
All set?
Hades 1 is a story based in repetition, not just in the gameplay, but in the narrative. Zagreus is repeatedly throwing himself into the biggest and baddest things in the underworld, not just for his sake, but for everyone around him. His tale shows how truly compassionate and caring he is, wanting to help everyone he can, including those he's wronged. Zagreus starts his quest as kind of the bad guy, with many people not caring for him or his skater dude lifestyle, so he fixes that. He recognizes his place in the underworld and fixes it by changing his selfish ways and becoming kinder. This makes the gift system in Hades 1 make more sense, as Zagreus' way of proving he has changed. Even his initial selfish goal of finding his mother changes into one of bringing her and his father back together, and this kindness is seen throughout his quests as he helps Sisyphus, Dusa, Orpheus, and Eurydice. All of this works because of two things. One, it's on a much smaller scale, and two, because Zagreus is going against a greater evil. In this case, the gods. Now, that may seem a little bit counterintuitive. How can one go against literal gods and still be on a smaller scale? Well, think about how Zagreus helps people. He's not saving them, he's just giving them that little push to make them happier, and show them that an eternity spent in the underworld may not have to be all that bad, that there's still some hope. It just happens that those whom he is helping was wronged by his family, who happen to be gods. Zagreus is in a place of privilege, and wants to use it to help people, and even if he can't fix every issue, he'll do what he can. Now, take everything I just said about Hades 1's narrative, and all of its strengths, and throw it away, and you get Hades 2. I think Hades 2 as a story is fundamentally flawed. Not just the ending, and it all goes back to it breaking the strengths of the first game. Yes, Melinoe is going against a greater evil, but it's not to help herself or her friends, it's to save the entire world. Everyone from the gods on Olympus to those hiding in Greece need Melinoe to defeat Kronos in order to stop him from killing everything. So yes, Hades 2's narrative is a lot bigger, with the end goal being a lot more dangerous than one would expect coming from Hades 1, but that shouldn't be an issue inherently. Sure, the smaller scale of the first game's narrative made for a more grounded story that worked amazingly with Zagreus' character, but as long as you take the proper steps to change motives and gameplay, it could work well. Well, they didn't. Hades 2 uses a lot of the same gameplay as Hades 1, including the same friendship and romance mechanics and the same base structure, and the same gods. It's very strange coming back from a run where you killed time itself, only to be greeted with a very nonchalant town where everyone loves you and knows you can do no wrong. And that's one of the biggest issues with Millennium. Everyone loves her. Even those who don't love her, and you can't prove otherwise. She's basically a chosen one that no one can or wants to oppose, and someone who everyone believes is doing the right thing. Her relationship to the Crossroads is that she is their strongest soldier, so everyone who lives there already trusts her enough as their protector. Everyone who she invites already believes in her for their own reason, and even the gods, who just learned about her, inherently trust her as their only hope that doesn't involve toppling Mount Olympus. So, why have a game that uses the same style of repetition as Hades 1? There's nothing to prove, except for death to Kronos. No matter what happens when you get back from a run, the people Millennium cares about will still care about her, because what other choice do they have? And this is what I mean by Hades 2's story being too big. People can oppose Zagreus and what he is doing, or what he will do. It's the conflict of every subplot. There's friction between each character in Zagreus. Achilles doesn't want Zagreus poking around his love life, Eurydice just wants to be left alone with her cooking, and Dusa doesn't want to disrupt his royal status by allowing him to be seen with her. Everywhere there's conflict for Zagreus and there's stakes for him in choosing to help or not to help. Dusa gets fired, Hades gets even more upset, Zagreus hurts his and Achilles' relationship by going against what he says, and even if these end up well, there's still issues that Zagreus had to combat when he made these decisions. Millennium doesn't have that conflict. The game is pretty clear that if Millennium chooses not to act, she's dooming not only herself, but everyone. So why wouldn't she act? And unlike Zagreus, who had to push through his own mother saying that she enjoys her life on the surface and prove to her that her home is in the underworld, what does Millennium have to do? Nothing. She has to kill Kronos, death to Kronos, that's it, that's the main thing. Maybe help a person or two along the way, but her goal is pretty clear, and she doesn't run into conflict with it because again, everyone loves her. Now there's one part of Hades 2's narrative that many people called out, that being Millennium's blind faith to the Greek gods and her lack of opposition to them. And I agree and disagree with this being an issue with the story. Millennium has lived a very well and privileged life, similar to Zagreus. She was led to believe that the gods are amazing and they're the ones who will save the underworld and her family, and despite seeing firsthand that their goals lie in keeping their home safe, she still chooses to help them while directly communicating her goals, something that Zagreus had to hide initially. And even when she repeatedly sees that every problem she and her friends face was caused by the gods, she doesn't go against them. After all, they're the gods, they know better. This is a bit strange, yes, but makes sense when given the stakes we have already established. The world is in danger. So what if Athena was petty and made Arachne into a spider? We need her because if we lose her, we lose the greatest mind. So what if Zeus gave Pandora her box? He's the king. You can't make him mad or else you lose everything. It all goes back to Hades 2 being a far bigger story than the first game. To go against the gods in this instance is to go against your goals. And if you go against your goal, you die. Also, unlike Zagreus, why should Millennium have to rebel against the gods? Everyone already loves her, she has nothing to prove aside from her ability to kill Kronos. If she can do that, everything will be fine.
This is it.
Finally, it's time to talk about the ending. This is something seemingly everyone had a problem with, and yeah, it's not very good. Since there's not a lot I can say that'll be new to this discussion, I just want to emphasize how flaccid this ending feels. After an entire video game's worth of playtime, once Millennium reaches the final battle where she can actually kill Kronos, death to Kronos, and stop his evil terror from taking over, Zagreus pulls a big switcheroo, and instead of killing Kronos in the past like he was supposed to do, he frees him and allows him to live in the House of Hades under a strict watch. We see a really cute past actually, where Kronos lived with the House of Hades and lost that spiteful rage he had back when he was imprisoned. Cutting back to the current moment, Melinoë is unaware of this separate timeline that the rest of the family only got to experience for some reason, and is faced with a choice to kill Kronos. Even with the good past happening, all the bad stuff Kronos did still happened, so Melinoë must choose to kill him or show him mercy because everyone else remembers this good past and tells her about it. She chooses not to kill him and frees everyone, allowing herself to build some sort of relationship with him, and they all live happily ever after, with Kronos needing Melinoë to continue her runs because of time junk. Okay, so the big thing wrong with this ending is how disconnected Melinoë feels from all of it. All agency is pulled away from her as Zagreus decides to kill Kronos without even confronting Melinoë. This I actually don't have any issue with. It's very in character for Zagreus to go against the common wishes of people and do what he thinks is best for them. However, he's not the main character. Melinoë is. Why doesn't she get to make this big decision on her own, regardless of whether it makes sense for Zagreus or not? And yes, Melinoë does get the last decision when she decides not to kill Kronos, but I hardly consider that a real choice, because she's making it while being surrounded by her family, the people she spent the entire game trying to save, begging her not to kill Kronos, because they got to experience the good father time that Melinoë never got, and want that for her instead of ruthless vengeance. And we've already established that Melinoë loves listening to people and following them with blind faith. So how is that a difficult decision compared to releasing a known threat into the world and trying to tame him in some way before he brings death? It's a very flat ending. However, could this have played out any other way? Was there a path where Zagreus killed Kronos in cold blood? Probably not. I get that people love Zagreus and wanted to see him in the sequel, but his inclusion with the whole time travel shenanigans just ruins this character-defining moment that Melinoë needed. I wanted her to choose to spare Kronos because she wanted to, not because Zagreus made a good past. I wanted Melinoë to look at everything she had done and realize they're here forever. Why make enemies? Let her prove to herself that an eternity spent in the underworld may not have to be all that bad. Instead, Zagreus does. And there's a whole game where I got to see him make that decision.
Moving on.
So no, I'm not a fan of this ending, or the story for that matter. And I'm not alone in this sentiment. Once the majority of players concluded Hades 2, word spread of how poor its ending was. However, I saw some complaints due to the lack of previous games' characters. Basically everyone Zagreus helped doesn't show up, and while I was okay with this decision as I wanted to focus on Melinoë and the new characters, the complete lack of them was a bit strange. So Supergiant Games made the wonderful decision to change the ending of the game. Let me say that again. They changed the ending of the game. So, I have been always very anti-updates to a degree. Once a work of art is out there, you shouldn't change what it is trying to say, and even with the amount of updates, DLCs, and remakes out there, it has always been true, mostly, that for single-player games, the original work is accessible through legal or illegal means. Even if Final Fantasy Tactics The Ivalice Chronicles changes the story, you can still play the PS1 original. The idea of updates changing the game experience to such a degree that it is essentially a different game isn't something that single-player games have ever had to worry about. Even if a DLC had extra story bits, they were usually made on top of the original story and were optional purchases. Supergiant Games have broken this idea and made their finished release into a work in progress instead. Hades 2 was in early access for years, where it was a work in progress. It had the excuse of being a poor story because it was the definition of a work in progress. Once it was released, Supergiant Games got on their blog and said, quote, "Those who have been keeping up with our early access development can look forward to a slew of new exciting additions in our version 1.0 update. Notably, the true ending of the story. This is how they wanted their story to end. This is how they sold their game for everyone to buy. But now, because people didn't like it, they have gone back on that decision. And I cannot think of something more cowardly to do. Where is someone supposed to find confidence and trust in a team if they can't even be confident in their own story? Games can be iterative, I'm not against early access as a whole, but when you hit release, update it, and label it the true ending of your game, you don't get to scuttle back into the game dev cave because people didn't like it. And yes, to be clear, I am discussing this on the belief that Supergiant Games changed the ending solely on player feedback, as no one from Supergiant Games has made any statements regarding it. And to see this as a change made by player feedback alone, yeah, it's extra stupid. This is the definition of pandering and makes Hades 2 seem like an experience made to please those who played the original rather than a work made to stand on its own. It also feels rude to those who played the original ending and enjoyed it to some extent. Supergiant Games is essentially saying that, no, you were wrong, that was the bad ending, here's the better one, here's the one that we fixed. And this isn't to comment on the changes made to the ending itself, we'll get to those in a minute, but I'm just scared more than anything about the precedent being set here by Supergiant Games. While not being the next EA, Supergiant Games is still a well-respected studio in the gaming scene. Hades 1 sold over 8 million copies and was the first video game to ever win a Hugo Award. It has been talked to death by thousands of people. They're a big deal, and changes like this can have ripple effects that reach far beyond what the team might have expected. This idea of changing a game the way it's presented is something that fighting games have been struggling to deal with for years now. In the digital age, updates that change anything are permanent and erase the game that once was. If you want to play Season 3 of Dragon Ball FighterZ, tough luck buddy, you're stuck with the current version and nothing else. This is awful for preservation as a whole. Different games are being lost with this, and now with Hades 2, a story is being lost with it. It doesn't matter if you liked the original ending or not. Like I said, I don't think it was great overall, but it was what Supergiant Games presented as their conclusion. It was what Supergiant Games called the true ending of the story. And now, because they realized people didn't like it, we have lost that true conclusion to Hades 2. To speak briefly on the changes as a whole, yeah, they improved the ending. It gives Millenoi a lot more agency, there's actual acknowledgement of the rest of the House of Hades, and it's a lot happier of an ending. I mainly take issue with Millennoi's characterization during this moment, as I find the moments leading up to it emphasize her rage over her forgiveness. Yes, I know they added more lines to justify this change, which is another bad thing to do as you're basically making pointless changes to a character to justify a pointless change in your ending, but still, the ending is quote-unquote better. And again, I don't want to come off as some rage-baiting jerk here. I do, in fact, love Supergiant Games' games, and I know they can do incredible work. Like, have you guys played Pyre? Oh my god, they made a game with 200 million different endings, all of which are better than Hades 2. It's so mean. I don't know if I can keep that, but it's really funny. I am just incredibly disappointed with the changes being done, and confused as to how an ending like this can slip through the cracks. I just hope this doesn't give other devs the idea that a finished game story is still a work in progress, even after you sell it. Supergiant Games can make good work. I hope this is just the last time they stumble like this. Anyways, here's a tier list of the hottest Hades 2 characters. Fight me in the comments over it.
Disguise